Hello and welcome to another fun, exciting episode of Once a Week. I'm your host, Victor Belmont, and I have a very special guest today. Is
Joshua.
And Joshua, what do you do?
I am the Director of Sexual Health for the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, and I'm also an instructor at CCSF, City College of San Francisco, and San Francisco State University.
So, Joshua has the fanciest job. So, we're here to talk about a couple of things. This episode is going to be talking and focusing on sexual health. As a little bit of a trigger warning, if you feel like these things are something that you don't want to hear about or something that make you feel a little uncomfortable, go ahead and skip this episode. Just want to give folks a little bit of a disclaimer. But besides that, going into some fun things.
Let's talk about sex.
Let's talk about sex.
Yes.
I'll let you go off a little bit if you want to give some information about what sort of testing you give, what are some common questions people come up to you and ask, or come to you to get answers.
So the testing that we run at our clinics, I run several sexual health clinics around San Francisco for certain different communities. We often are doing rapid HIV testing, rapid hepatitis C testing. We're also doing screenings for syphilis, chlamydia, and gonorrhea. Those are the infections that we find are most prevalent in queer communities. We often get questions mostly about transmission and about symptoms, kind of where these things come from and how they feel. We also have a lot of concerns around access to services and spaces that are safe that you can go to and find a provider who's kind of going to embrace you and your sexuality instead of giving you a hard time about who you are and what kind of sex you're having.
Great, that's awesome. There's this thing called an incubation period, which is a word that has been thrown around in clinics that I've heard, but people might not be aware of what that means. Would you go ahead and explain that a little bit?
Absolutely. Generally with bacteria and with viruses, when you're exposed to them, they love to live in these places in your body that are dark and warm and moist. All of our lovely holes that we love to use for sex.
Yeah, I love them.
Exactly. They're the best. But they're also the best place for bacteria to survive and to thrive in your body. Basically what happens is if you're exposed to any of those bacteria, most likely you're going to pick up that infection. And truthfully, if you screened right after you got off with someone that you were exposed to an infection, you would be able to pick that up potentially because the bacteria would be like in your throat or any of your holes. Generally, within a day or two, the bacteria have multiplied so much that it's more easily detectable by the tests that we do. Generally, the way that we pick up bacteria is that we do a swab, like in your throat or in your butt or in the vagina. And we also make people pee in a cup sometimes if they're experiencing symptoms when they pee. Again, it takes a couple days for bacteria to multiply and to show up in your body. So there's a couple days where you wouldn't really experience symptoms, and that's, I think, what is referred to most as the incubation period, the time it takes for a bacteria to manifest itself in your system to start creating problems for you.
Well, thanks for clearing that up. That's
Sure.
really great. I also am really excited and want to talk to you about PrEP and what PrEP is. I get a lot of questions about it, and I'd love for you to give a little bit on what PrEP is and how it's used.
So PrEP is this amazing medication that was approved in the mid-2000s as a treatment for people living with HIV. What they also found is that if you were exposed to HIV and people started taking PrEP immediately afterwards, that it would keep them from getting an infection. And we decided, well, if we can prevent infections by giving it after an exposure, then why don't we just give it to people before they're exposed to HIV to prevent them from actually getting HIV? And it's quite successful. In fact, basically you take a pill a day, once a day, and it almost sort of works like birth control, where if you take a pill a day, then you don't get pregnant. Well, with PrEP, you take a pill a day, and it's very hard for you to get HIV. In fact, we have thousands of people all over the United States and other countries around the world that are taking PrEP, and we've only had 2 known infections of people who were taking PrEP and that picked up an HIV infection. Those 2 infections were actually from people who were exposed to a drug-resistant form of HIV, which is quite rare. Basically, the way PrEP works, the technologies is that PrEP keeps HIV from attaching to the cells in your body. If there's no way for HIV to attach to your cells and replicate, then it can't actually survive in your system.
Well, that was very informative. I hope you all learned things. If you wanted to shamelessly plug something, shamelessly promote something, what would it be?
I think that it's access to sexual health services. It's so important to go and screen. HIV rates in some locations are declining considerably, but there's still a lot of sexual health issues that exist.
So if somebody didn't have access to those services, and maybe they're not in San Francisco, how would they get in touch with somebody to try and get information or trying to find a space that would be safe for testing?
My testing services teams would be glad to help you connect with folks that are near you, so you can always reach out to the San Francisco AIDS Foundation information lines, or you can contact me directly. Feel free to send me an email, and I'd love to make sure that you have access to these safe spaces. If you're searching for places around you, some of the best places to go are HIV organizations, because generally, most of the people that access services there are queer, gay, bi, trans, and are willing to work with you to help make sure that you get access to services that are affirming and that feel great.
Well, thanks so much for being on the show, Joshua.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. And I'll put Joshua's contact information down in the link below. And thank you so much for watching another awesome episode of Once a Week. I can't wait to see you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.